But like, what if we made it so that everybody gets food? It's just like, basically, what if we made it so cheap to produce things that people need? It's just so cheap that like some nice person will just pay for it for like 100 people because it costs them so little. Kind of like when you go to a coffee shop and they have free Wi-Fi, like they technically pay for an internet connection and it supports like a number of bits that they can have, but it's so cheap for you to log in and check your email. It's free, you know? It's just free. Somebody is paying for it, but they're happy to because it's so cheap. So what if we did that with all of the material goods that people need to survive? You can build like a finite economy of machines which you own. And even if you don't own everyone else's factories in the world, if you own the machines that make what you rely on day to day, I think maybe you'll get like a certain kind of freedom, like a certain benefit of those machines. One of the things I'm getting at is like, I really believe it's possible for every person to live a good life without working very much. Like, I think every person could work 5-10 hours a week and we'd still be fine if we organize production in a way which is essentially designed to maximize this effect. Right now, your only choice is to kind of buy from capitalism every day. But you could buy from capitalism parts for a machine, construct the machine, and then get your everyday first order needs met by that machine that you own. Because that is, like, this is worker ownership of the means of production. But what I'm saying is that you don't need to, like, take over the entire country, which is, it seems difficult.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Taylor's Robots. I'm Taylor Alexander. I use they, them pronouns, and I love the beach. My apartment flooded last weekend, so I can't show you the new YouTube studio I'm building. It's currently under construction again. But I was out here at the beach, and I wanted to get some thoughts down anyway. So my last video was very long. I have uploaded some shorts about the robot arm I'm working on. I'm building a 4-axis 3D printed robot arm. It'll get more axes later. I'm going to go to 7 probably. So it's based off of this design, which is kind of like a 2-axis unit, and then there's 2 of those. That makes 4. The elbow is much smaller, so they're separate assemblies, but inspired by the same concept. And then for the final 3 axes, I kind of want to make like a single 3-axis module. That's smaller and lightweight for the final end of it. But the project has taken a lot of time, so I'm not trying to rush on that one. But I might have 4 axes soon, so look at the shorts on my channel. I've got some of the single axis moves there so far. And you can follow me on Twitter. I'm like very queer on Twitter, and I talk about robots and communism. So if that's up your alley, then I'm at TL Alexander on Twitter. Yeah, so I tried to sit down and write a script. The last video was very long, and I thought, well, I really need scripts or bullet points or something like that. But I still haven't worked that into my schedule, and I still want to share some ideas. So we're going to keep going with this unscripted stuff. I'm writing a lot of comments on the internet that explain my ideology, but the people I want to explain it to the most are you viewers on my video channel. So I haven't really been explaining a lot of my ideology here. It comes out in bits and pieces when I leave comments on Hacker News. My username on Hacker News is Taylor Alexander, and I'm constantly talking about libertarian communism. I really like the general kind of economic analysis of Karl Marx. And I'm also like very libertarian minded. I don't like the state or the government to use the threat of force to accomplish some means. I think if you can do that through free association or just people agreeing to your plan, then it's probably a really good plan. And I really think a lot about, so Richard Wolff is like, he's an interesting economist. He's a Marxist, but his whole, you can listen to his whole spiel, and at the end of it, his thing is basically, I think people would be better off if more of the businesses in our economy were cooperatives. And that's like his whole message. I mean, he's got like a detailed analysis and he's very well informed. I like him. But you know, at the end, he's just saying like, we should have cooperatives. And I think a lot of people hear Marxism and they think we've got to force people to do stuff. But there's just an economic analysis that says basically collective ownership has certain benefits, and you know, suggesting that people go out and do that. So that's the spirit of my economic ideals. It's interesting because I think the term communism is useful. In my last video, I made it very clear this is a libertarian communism. So I talked about the political compass and how you can have authoritarian ideas on the left or the right, and you can have libertarian ideas on the left or the right. And I'm on the left and libertarian. So really, it's just, you know, so people say, well, I get this comment sometimes when I say, hey, we should change the way we do things. And someone will come in the comments and say, well, what's stopping you from doing this? Why don't you just go out and do it? The answer in many cases is that nothing is really stopping me from doing it. But the point of collective action is to find other like-minded people who agree with your philosophy. And so you need to if you want to accomplish, you know, collective organization, then you need to share your ideas and your thoughts with other people and try to have discussions about them, you know, work out the merits of different ideas, and find other like-minded people who want to work with you. So that's what I'm trying to do here with my life, with this YouTube channel on this planet, is find other people who think that these ideas for libertarian socialism with focus on how robots are involved, that's really what I've always wanted to do with this channel. And I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying to increase my YouTube presence, or my video presence. I'm interested in, you know, maybe getting on other video sites, but for now we're on YouTube. Yeah, so I don't want to make this video too long. I think 45-minute videos that are unscripted are too long, and I need to sit down and write. I did some writing and I found out that I have so many ideas I think I could fill a book. It would be great someday to write a book, but it doesn't do anyone any good today if in 10 years I write a book. So perhaps that will happen, but I want to flesh out some ideas here. Okay, that was all the preamble. So I've been thinking about this idea of economies. So one thing I really like about the Marxist analysis is this basic concept, which is that if all of the firms in your economy are privately owned corporations with a top-down hierarchical structure, then that structure will be mirrored in your broader society. Look, like everybody needs manufactured goods. I think, you know, we should make things for people that people need, so that's good. The question is just how do we arrange production? So that's very interesting to me. So you know, this basic concept, this Marxist concept, which Richard Wolff comes out kind of at the beginning of his talks, but you know, he says that if you have a whole economy where all of the firms in that economy, the companies, if they're all top-down hierarchical organizations with a CEO and board of directors up top and then a bunch of employees down below, if all of the firms in your economy have that structure, then your whole economy is going to kind of mirror that structure in a larger scale. So you're going to get top-down rule, essentially, not necessarily authoritarian rule, but the people making all of the decisions in your economy will be people who are on the top of one of their little hierarchies. And so that's one way to organize production, and some people think that it's done great things. But it's undeniable that there's a lot of poverty in America. There's a lot of hunger, and one wonders if there are other ways to organize production which might have different results. And it would be interesting to compare and contrast the other ideas with the way we're doing things. So Richard Wolff kind of really keys off of this concept that if you have hierarchical firms throughout your economy, then your economy will be hierarchical at a larger scale. And so his proposed solution, which is a completely libertarian ideal, which is that it's a voluntary system, his solution is that more people should form cooperatives. And that if you have a whole economy of cooperatives, now there is not a hierarchical top-down structure within the firms, and when you have the broader economy, you're going to have just more diffuse benefits through growth of business and success of industry. So, you know, a lot of people look at the distribution of wealth that comes out of our economy, and you kind of wonder, like, does it have to be that way? You know, is that the only way to do it? I'm of the view that we could change the structure and organization of our economy, and we could still have, you know, high technology, MRI machines, cameras like the one I'm using here. I think there are other ways to do it that would still work. Now there's a separate question, which is, do we need so much industrial production? Because it does cause a lot of environmental harm. We've got to bulldoze forests to put in room for superhighways, and you know, this happens all across the world. And it's you know, this is a beautiful planet. I'm actually going to take a moment and show you the sun's behind.
Hey everyone, Editor Taylor here. When I moved the camera, the shotgun mic picked up a lot of ocean noise, so I'm switching the audio over to the lav mic, which was unfortunately clipping the whole time. I filtered the clipping a bit. It sounds, I think, better than the ocean noise, but if it hurts your brain, I'm sure I'll talk about this stuff in the future. I think it's an interesting subject in covering though, so give it a shot.
Okay, so now I'm backlit and I'm in the dark, but you know, I was getting this great view and you were missing out. I figured I should show you. Gosh, this place is beautiful. And industrial production has downsides. We got to cut down forests, emit pollutants, figure out where to put them anyway. And a lot of times when you go to the store right now and you go buy something at Target or at Forever 21, I don't know where the kids are buying clothes these days. It comes from a place that was once this beautiful and has been polluted into a trash heap. And it doesn't happen in front of us, and it's really easy to focus on whatever shiny things are on the television in front of us, or the screen, as we've now come to. And I think a lot about what kind of industrial production is necessary for health and human happiness. And this is going to be subjective. Everyone's going to have their own view, but I think about, what does it mean to me? And then, okay, so there's this idea. So Richard Wolff has this idea that if you have a lot of cooperatives in an economy, like 50% of the firms in your economy are cooperatives, let's say, that would be a very different functioning economy. It can still be a completely, you know, capitalist. You can use money for all the exchanges. I mean, even if you kept everything else the same, it would still be a very different world. And it's still free enterprise. You know, anyone can start a cooperative. You don't have to, you know, force anyone. It's like, what I'm saying is, what if a lot of people thought that was a good idea and they all did it because they wanted to, not because somebody was forcing them to? You know, what would that be like? Okay, so there's this chart that I see a lot, and it plots the real wages versus productivity going back since, you know, at least 1980. And what you see in this chart is that there was a change. Before 1980, as productivity went up, wages went up. And then we made changes to our economic policy in the United States. And after that happened, in 1980 and beyond, productivity continued to rise, but the real wages stagnated. So that's the wages compensated for inflation. So how much people were actually getting paid stopped increasing since 1980. It's fluctuated, maybe it's gone up a little bit, but the point is that there's a significant deviation. It used to follow as productivity increased, but now productivity is through the roof and real wages have stagnated. So what that means is that some people are getting really rich, doing just gangbusters. I mean, they've got 1,000-acre estates, they've got 6 homes, they fly every summer, and they fly every weekend somewhere. They're living like this dream, like James Bond, just every weekend kind of a thing. And there are other people who are working at all these companies, are generating the value in these companies that are putting, people in space and all that stuff. And those people can't afford medical care. And it's just like, wow. So people kind of put this thing together that something happened in 1980 and it caused, productivity continued, but it caused a disconnect between wages and productivity. And I don't have an analysis prepared for that particular thing, but people kind of look at that and they see that there's a problem. There's something has happened, and we kind of wonder, like, well, if productivity is rising, why doesn't everybody do well? Why isn't it true anymore? Was it ever true that a rising tide lifts all boats? Because it seems like we've got a lot of people who are drowning. So there's some desire to look at the economy differently and to question, whether or not we can organize production in a way that distributes things more equitably, so that everybody who's working hard can live. And so that's this idea that Richard Wolff puts out, that if everybody was running a cooperative, then when productivity rises, they'd all get a bigger paycheck, a big dividend. If sales are rising, then everybody who's working at a cooperative could, have good pay. And cooperatives can have different pay structures, but everyone can vote on how the thing is organized. And so my point here is to explain that this is one other way of thinking about the economy. And I like that analysis, but I'm also a robotics engineer, which I tend to make known every once in a while on this channel. And when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And so I look at the world and the economy and I say, wow, robots are productive machines. Robots are intimately tied to the functioning of our economy. And not just robots, but automation and software. When Martin Luther King gave a speech called The Three Evils of Society in the 1960s, he warned about problems with automation. This has been happening ever since factories were invented hundreds of years ago. So robots are productive machinery. Robots create goods. Robots can perform services. The robots are like labor in a bottle. So this whole question of how do we organize society for equitable benefit, how do we make sure that we're getting production done, that people can, buy water bottles and, cameras and MRI machines. How do we do that in a way that is minimally wasteful, minimally destroying the planet? So I take a look at the analysis that Richard Wolff has, which is that, if the economy was full of firms which were cooperatively owned, then people would have more power. People would be receiving the benefits of productivity and things like that. And as robotics come into play, there's this interesting idea, which is that you can fully automate a business, theoretically. At least whatever is a business today might get automated away, and there will be edge cases and different things that have to be done by people. But I start thinking about an entire economy. Like, what if an entire economy, from the dirt to the goods in your hand and the fruit and the food and the meals, what if absolutely everything was automated? Now, there's a meme on the internet, fully automated luxury communism. Sometimes it's fully automated gay luxury communism. I'm all for it. But this is a meme. And a lot of the people that talk about this don't understand robotics. They don't understand engineering. And I hope that I can provide some opinion, I guess, some ideas. I hope that I can provide some thoughts here which are at least somewhat informed as far as engineering and production goes. Now, I'm not a production engineer. I've never run a factory. I build individual robots. But I think a lot about material production and how all of that stuff goes, and it's something that's very interesting to me. So, robots are coming. That's what they say in Forbes and all these things. Robots are coming. And if you're a business owner, well, you should buy robots and you'll get rich, maybe. I mean, that's what the stories say. But if you're a worker and your business owner buys more robots, you might be out of a job. You might have worse bargaining power. You might get lower wages, less benefits. But why? What is the point? And so I've come to take this, what is, would be considered a radical view. And it's this idea, like, let's do the thing with the robots. I'm all for it. Let's do it. But let's do it in a way where everyone directly receives the benefits of that production. Okay, so we're going to take this Richard Wolff model of everything should be a cooperative. Okay, everything can be a cooperative in my vision now that I'm talking about. And let's try to fully automate all of that. So I'm working on a farming robot. I'm starting with the dirt and the food. We're going to go from there. But I think about other machines like food production machines. So I've talked about the Sikhs in India and the massive food production systems that they have. They make a great use of big steel pots and pipes and valves and things like that to flow the food around into big containers. And I'm very curious, what would happen if you fully automated that, or you built a fully automated machine which could just make healthy hot meals, like really healthy stuff. So I've been trying to eat a little better lately. I'm listening to nutritionfacts.org, Dr. Grieger, and some other people like that. I'm vegan. And I've been eating like a lentil curry. It's got sweet potatoes, onions, some garlic and ginger and curry spices, and some coconut milk. And it's really, really yummy. It feels really healthy. The spices, turmeric in there. Turmeric's apparently really good. And I think about like making a machine that could produce that meal just like all day long, all the time. And I'm kind of thinking, like, what are the economics of a completely different system, something that I call upside down economics, where a bunch of people get together. I'm talking about doing this voluntarily, like the way that Wikipedia is voluntary. Like, if you don't want to participate in Wikipedia, you're fine. Don't. Just enough people get together and make Wikipedia that it exists and we have it. So, like, what if a bunch of people got together and we built machines that could produce, like, hundreds of meals a day, thousands of meals a day. I hope someday I'm making a machine that makes 10,000 meals a day. And like if you had a machine that could make 10,000 meals a day, if you had 80 of such machines across San Francisco, then every person could be eating from one of those machines. Or maybe you have a machine that produces a couple hundred meals a day. But like, what if we made it so that everybody gets food? It's just like, basically, what if we made it so cheap to produce things that people need? It's just so cheap that like some nice person will just pay for it for like 100 people because it costs them so little. Kind of like when you go to a coffee shop and they have free Wi-Fi, like they technically pay for an internet connection and it supports like a number of bits that they can have, but it's so cheap for you to log in and check your email. It's free, it's just free. Somebody is paying for it, but they're happy to because it's so cheap. So what if we did that with all of the material goods that people need to survive? And there's like a lot of different ways of arranging this, but this is what I think about a lot. And we can, some things can't be, like I don't want to automate healthcare, for example, but what if we made sure that all the doctors had all of the goods that they needed, and they had all of the food that they needed, and they had shelter and all of this stuff? Then the doctors could basically offer a free clinic and they'd still be fine. So if you know about Marxism, then you know that socialism is about worker ownership of the means of production. What is the means of production? Okay, the means of production is like all the factories that make the stuff that you need. Okay, but like there's some factories in the world that are making something that you didn't buy, and nobody that you rely on bought it either. There's just other factories in the world making something else for somebody else, don't have anything to do with you. So there is like a set of machines in the world which existed and produced, like take one day of your life, you wake up, you eat an apple. So there's like a truck that took that apple to the place that you got it from. You got in a car, a bus, you walked, you had shoes on, whatever your mode of transport was, you know, there was some item, a truck or shoes, that you used to get to the store. Like there's all this material stuff in the world, and it would be a large number. It would be impractical to actually count them, but you can imagine as a thought experiment that there is a finite set of machines which produced everything that you used last Tuesday. And so my theory is that we don't need to own the entire means of production, but to be Marxist and have what Marxism promises, you know, freedom in that way. You don't need to own everyone's factory. You need to own the factories that you depend upon. And so then I got this idea, you can actually make your own economy. You can make an independent economy that is 10 big automated machines, and you and 100 friends all group ownership on these 10 different big machines, and then y'all can receive the benefit of automation directly because the machine makes shoes and you're part owner. So every 100th shoe the machine, there's 100 owners I'm saying, so every 100th pair of shoes the machine makes goes to you. Or, you know, hopefully it produces more shoes than y'all 100 people need, and so you just give away shoes or you trade them or whatever. But the point is that you can build a finite economy of machines which you own. And even if you don't own everyone else's factories in the world, if you own the machines that make what you rely on day to day, I think maybe you'll get a certain kind of freedom, a certain benefit of those machines. One of the things I'm getting at is I really believe it's possible for every person to live a good life without working very much. I think every person could work 5-10 hours a week and we'd still be fine if we organize production in a way which is essentially designed to maximize this effect. And some people will say it won't work, you'll fail at actually producing things because of this or that reason. There's a lot of ways to do it wrong, for sure. But I think it's really interesting to think about whether or not it's possible to do it right. Because if you and I could hang out here at this beach on a random day of the week, instead of having to go to a job and make money so that we can get food and shoes, I think that would be pretty nice. I would like that. So there's this idea that I think you can build an economy which is small, and if it produces everything that you need day to day, then you've got your first order needs met by an economy which you own. Now there are second order needs, which is that you need parts for those machines. Okay, so second order, it would be nice to also be part owner collectively, collaboratively, in the machines which make the parts for the machines which produce the goods that you rely on every day. But I think that capitalism is going to be around for a while, and right now your only choice is to kind of buy from capitalism every day. But you could buy from capitalism parts for a machine, construct the machine, and then get your everyday first order needs met by that machine that you own. Because that is, this is worker ownership of the means of production. But what I'm saying is that you don't need to take over the entire country, which is, it seems difficult. You need to own the means of production which you rely on for your day-to-day needs. And then if you own it and it does the thing, it makes you hot meals and it makes you shoes and it makes you clothes, then you will be receiving, you and your comrades will be receiving, or compañeros, my friend from Mexico told me that one. It's kind of a nice one. In comrade in the USA has connotations, so we could say compañeros. But anyway, you and the other members who own this machine would be receiving the benefits of automation directly. So I don't know, I'm a theory nerd, and I feel like I've solved Marxism, so that's good. No, not really, but it is, like, I don't see people talking about this. You know, my friend's a left libertarian, and so he wants leftist stuff, he just doesn't want the government to do it. And he told me that when Obamacare passed, there were like certain restrictions on healthcare cooperatives that came into play. So they actually wanted to make it more difficult for people to voluntarily organize and form a healthcare collective. And so on the spectrum of like, should we have Obamacare? Should we make it like Medicare for all? I don't know. I mean, it would be cool to have like regional healthcare cooperatives. I think that would be pretty rad. And so I worry that when we push for, I mean, I was a big proponent of Bernie Sanders, and I felt like if we're going to have a president, I thought Bernie Sanders' economic policy was actually the most likely to produce good results for regular everyday Americans. Now, there's a lot of political maneuvering around economic plans, so a lot of people think that what I just said is ridiculous. Love to sit down, have some tea, and talk about it. But at any rate, I think if you have to have a president like Bernie Sanders, not a bad choice, good choice even, but I don't really want us to be dictated by a president. My ideal is that we get together and in a totally free way, just like the same way that some people built Wikipedia, I think we could be building machines which support our first order needs. And we could work on the second order problems as well. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do, and I want to end this here. I don't want to go on forever. I'll have to talk more. But I would absolutely love to know what your thoughts are on this. The whole point of this is that this needs to be a collective movement, and I would be one contributor to such a movement. And we need a lot of people. We need people to learn, I mean, whatever it is that you want to do. So if you want to do healthcare and help people, then you need to learn healthcare. I can talk a lot about engineering, and I will encourage anyone interested in engineering to get into it, to check it out, to get a Raspberry Pi and get an LED and a resistor, and then try to blink the resistor with Python. That's like, boom, you could do some project, you could learn the tiniest bit of engineering. That's what I was doing 20 years ago, and now I'm building some really cool robots I'm really happy about. But what I want to do is build robots that help one another. I do not think that robots will solve our problems. I think that humans will solve our problems. But I do wonder, if we had a free society, what kind of robots would we want? What kind of machines would we want? And I think trying to think about the minimal set of production equipment which will meet your first order daily needs, such that the marginal cost of your survival is very low. So you have some upfront cost to buy these machines that you go in on with a group of friends or something, and the daily cost of that machine's operation is very low. And this is like my overall theory, is that we can make socialism appealing to people if it's very cheap. And we can do that if we intentionally engineer machines whose goal is to look at what people need and engineer away all the extra complexity. You can have one machine that does the job of like 10 companies. And so then instead of all these companies with administrators and trucks delivering things and FedEx between them, all this stuff, you could have like one machine. So I think we can simplify the economy. And you can't fully automate everything. I know that. It's a lot of people wish we could, but the world's pretty complicated. Robots are in their infancy. But I think there's a lot of stuff we can automate to eliminate significant amounts of complexity in the economy. And I think that if we own those machines, we'll receive the benefits of their production. And there's something interesting, which is that if you want to do this, then it becomes obvious that everything should be open source. You and some people on the other side of the world have very similar like first order material needs. And so if you engineer a machine that can provide for your first order needs, it probably helps somebody somewhere else too. And that's going to create a market of manufacturers who are going to manufacture these goods for everyone. This kind of happened like with 3D printers. The patents expired, and everybody found some use for little objects, and so companies all over started making 3D printers because nobody owned the idea. It was open source. And that worked out really well, because now you can buy a $300 printer anywhere in the world. And I think we could do that with more machinery. In the same way that open source software has been very successful and is widely used in industry, as a person who works across the physical, into the physical world with computers, and I work with machinery and motors and electronics and sensors, I view robotics as being just like software, in the sense that you need to build something for your software system. You're going to pull in all these packages, and you're going to stack them together, and you're going to build your software program. But we could do that with open source motor controllers and open source sensors and designs and complete assemblies. So we could have whole open source robots. And when you need to build something, you can pull in the design for this open source robot. Now, somebody had to manufacture the physical robot, so you have to pay for that. But that's actually really good, because it means the economics of open source hardware are much better than the economics of open source software. So, yeah, so I think that if you want to see this world happen, everything should be open source. We should really think about the machines that we like we should think about the stuff that we really need every day, and then we should try to make machines which can produce that for us at a very low marginal cost. So I'll have to sit down and, I want to continue improving my video production skills. I want to write scripts and bullet points and try to keep stuff concise. Hopefully this was shorter. I've lost complete track of time. But that's what I wanted to talk about this week, so thank you so much for watching. I'm going to step out of the way and just let you watch sunset for a while, so I hope you enjoy it. Take care.